There was nothing on the market good enough, punchy enough to get my consultants billing quickly in tough markets. Nothing that engaged my consultants, keeping them hungry for deals. Nothing that kept them sharp. See, no one was as good at training my people as I was. But this took a lot of my time. What was available for my senior consultants? How could I maximize their revenue? There was nothing on the market that truly made my people feel invested in, that I would be comfortable putting them in front of. So we made it. Find out why people are joining the RecWire Plus recruitment platform. Link in the show notes. Back to the show.
Welcome to 2025 and welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. I am your host, Dualta Doherty, and I'm joined by Michelle Flynn from Michelle Flynn Coaching, or Wendy Rhoades, as we like to call her in the industry. How's things?
I'm very good, thank you. I love that. Whenever anyone who's seen Billions, as soon as you say Wendy, it's like, now they understand what I do.
Yeah, awesome. So I suppose today, kind of try and disseminate what it is that sets top performers apart, maybe some of the stuff that founders can do to be better themselves, maybe that division between work and family life and goals and putting wins and losses and everything that comes with this wild road. I'm nearly 10 years in business. I feel like I've nearly been out of business twice. I have set up one failed business within that. I've set up 3 ones that are still going, and 2 of those that are generating profit at the moment, but it's bloody hard. But so I've been on this thing, and it's hard. This roller coaster, right? And I'm probably your everyman recruitment founder. Like I mean, a lot of the guys are quite similar to me. It's quite similar journey. So maybe you could guinea pig me a little bit today, and we'll see where we end up. But that before we kind of jump in, can you kind of give us a brief rundown of your background and your story today?
Yeah, absolutely. So started in recruitment in the late 90s before email. Don't know if anyone listening to this remembers sort of franking machines where it was actually someone's job to put stamps on envelopes so that we could email out post out CVs. So I spent 8 years at Computer Futures doing the perm market, which is interesting now, the whole debate around dual desking and whether you should do perm and contract or just be a specialist. I have my own personal strong view.
What is your personal strong view on that?
I'd have made a terrible contract recruiter, would have been really bad at it. I had a brilliant contract counterpart, a guy called Vas Constanti. He was brilliant. I was doing brilliant at perm. We both made loads of money. I think if I'd have been dual desking, I probably wouldn't have done as well. So I'm quite strong knowing you.
I agree with you. Where you see it working, not working, where you see it happening is more in owner-operated businesses where the founder has some people that almost become his mates, and they want a wee contract book and they want some of the gravy on perm, and it's for the benefit of keeping that person happy. And that person slowly stays and gets the person who falls away, and then they can't hire a contract person, and then they keep going through these cycles, but they never really grow.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. And I get why everyone wants a contract book. If you want to exit, then you want one of those, and it's what carried a lot of people through. But yeah, anyway, going back to where it was, I left there and became the recruitment manager for one of my clients. They were a consultancy. So back in sort of the...
You went internal?
I went internal before internal was a thing. I know. Ooh, awful. And
Right. All right. Okay. Let's see how we go with the next bit.
Well, I had some very interesting run-ins with some recruitment agencies. I'll leave it at that. But I loved it. I learned the other side of how to recruit, about building sort of employer branding, the marketing aspect of it, all about candidate experience, which I had.
Even back then?
Yeah. I'd like to say that sort of this was 2006 I joined them. I would say that I was probably at the forefront of starting to make that happen. So I was involved with user groups, I was blogging, I was Computer Weekly's IT Female Blogger of the Year, which was weird because I wasn't in IT. My market was IT, but I wasn't a techie. So I really learned about how we manage the experience, how we don't waste time interviewing people that aren't right, how we don't work jobs that aren't right. And then I scaled with that business. They sold to a big American company, and then I set up my own recruitment business, working with startups. I had them on exclusive. I had 100% hit rate. I only did perm, didn't touch any of their contract jobs. And the job was to sort of, they'd hired their friends, they got some funding, now they needed to grow. And I was their sort of in-house recruiter, but I had 5 or 6 clients on at any one time.
It's like a micro RPO with...
Basically, yeah, exactly. And loved it. So that started about 13 years ago now, I guess. To be honest, I fell into it. I had no business plan. I was just getting asked to, will I go and do their recruitment? And I was like, oh, okay, let's give this a go. Let me set up a company and see what happens. And it went really well. Loved it. Worked with some really great brands. And then had a health scare. That was 10 years ago now. Ignored it for 3 years. Tired, sick, sort of no memory, feeling all round terrible, but was able to function in my job because I've been doing recruitment for so long, and eventually kind of hit the floor the second time and went and figured out what was going on, took some time out, and then retrained and have been coaching now for 6 years, mainly recruiters and leaders of businesses, but not exclusively, but mainly because it makes sense, because I understand the world and I talk the language, and I like to have quite a lot of fun whilst I'm doing it.
Okay. So talk to me about what that evolution is of your coaching business. Lots of things have happened in the last 6 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I didn't make a business plan to start a coaching business. You kind of get the theme here. I just go with a gut, sort of what feels right, and an opportunity sort of came my way, and I started studying, because for me, coaching is very unregulated, but for me, it was really important to have a good qualification. So I studied for a year, started getting some coaching clients, was asked to do a talk at a recruitment networking event, which I thought, seriously, I've been on like incentive trips with these people to Ibiza, and you want me to get up and talk to them about health and well-being and performance? And actually it went really well, because I talked in a way that everyone understood. It wasn't preachy, it was just sort of informative and fun. And then more clients from the back of that. And then I started to do more and more talks, and I've done over 4,000 coaching hours and 400 talks now. So
what was the education process like?
So I studied a health coaching course with an Institute of Integrative Nutrition, quite hard to say. So I firstly came out as a certified health coach, and then I started doing that. And then I decided I needed to understand more about how people think and how I could help people evolve their thinking to be more positive. So I trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. Then I decided that actually a lot of what I do, although it's coaching and mentoring, it can go into a bit of therapy. So I studied all around trauma. And then one of the things that really is a baseline across everything is breath work. I preach about it a lot. So recently I've just qualified as an Oxygen Advantage breathwork instructor. So I've got 10 different qualifications, and each time just things that are coming up in my coaching or in sort of my group sessions where I feel like, okay, it's really important that I go and I understand more about it. So my current learning is all around flow state. So this is hot off the press that I am this year. For me, that's what I'm going to be really focusing on, because how do we get people motivated and performing and getting them into that state where whether it's business development, whether it's doing their admin, they're actually just getting the job done, as opposed to sort of just avoiding it as much as possible.
Wow. Okay. So you're not going to make this easy for me. You've just told me a million different things. So
Sorry. It's the Wendy Rhoades, I told you.
You started with the physical, right?
Yes.
Right. Did that derive from your own physicality? And what were the big takeaways in that?
Yes. So 10 years ago, I got rushed to hospital with a suspected heart attack. I was in my early 40s, all the tests done, luckily no heart attack, but there was lots of little things that was wrong, which I just sort of got used to ignoring. So then, because it wasn't a heart attack, I thought, oh, well, I'll ignore the fact that I collapsed on the floor and got rushed to hospital, and I'll just carry on. And for 3 years, I just wasn't right. And I remember Moonpig was one of my clients, and I walked in one day because I had a desk in there and an email address for them. And I walked in, I was part of the team, and one of the developers was like, Michelle, are you sick again? And I was like, that's a bit rude. But I was like, oh, I literally hadn't noticed that I was just ill a lot, because I was able to do my job. I knew all of the development market in London. My clients were all like just doing what I wanted them to do. So it hadn't actually impacted my ability to do my job. And when I collapsed the second time, I headbutted something. So I ended up with 2 black eyes, which suddenly meant people were very noticeably saying, what's wrong? The doctor was telling me there was nothing. I had some therapy for a while, and I think everyone should have therapy for a bit. But my key thing is find the right therapist, because the woman I found, she wasn't really right. I'd get home, I'd just be really angry with my husband, and it wasn't even like I was looking for therapy to deal with him.
No, I think some of these therapists should be locked up. It seems like every woman out there now is on antidepressants over a certain age.
Yeah.
And if you take something to suppress your feelings without actually trying to deal with it, and like the body, like it'll come out somewhere. Like you can't just numb yourself through life.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying. And I think that like every now and then there is absolutely a place for antidepressants if someone is in a really bad way and they just need sort of to lift the cloud for a bit, but it shouldn't be the first point of call. And as you're saying, particularly for women as they start to hit perimenopause, if you go to a doctor that doesn't know what they're talking about, here's the antidepressants, love. And you're like, hang on a minute, there are other options. But yeah, so the doctor was saying nothing. The therapist was just making me annoyed. And then I took myself away to a health retreat in Thailand for 2 weeks, which was
What part?
in Phuket.
Okay.
So a friend of mine had recommended it, didn't know what to expect. I arrived, I thought I'd lost my mind. I'd left my husband at home. I was like, I've gone on my own. What am I doing? And within 5 minutes, I was just like, this is exactly where I need to be.
Nice.
I was just introduced to everything. I was like, right, this is how you should be eating. Don't over exercise, because actually if you're already in a very stressful career and then you're over exercising, that's not great for your body. What else can you do? Walking, yoga, movement, all of that stuff. Then I was introduced to meditation and breath work and hot water and hot saunas, cold water. Hot water as well. And I was just like 2 weeks, I was immersed in all of this stuff. And I was just like this big sponge of, I wanted to know everything. And like, I lost a stone in 2 weeks. That was lovely. But it wasn't about that. It was about me just stopping, taking time for myself. I'd been working nonstop since I was 21 and just needed to stop and go, what do I actually want? Came back, decided I wanted to study. So decided to do the course that one of the girls had done that I'd met over there. Had no idea. It's like the world's leading health coach course taught by all of the top experts that you'd hear on all of the podcasts. So that was pure chance. Had no plans to be a health coach, really loved recruitment, made loads of money doing it. And then slowly my recruitment clients started asking for coaching, and then I started to do more talks. And then I pivoted my recruitment business. I started just teaching people how to recruit. So I'd go into businesses and pull apart their recruitment process and fix it. And
you still do that?
Occasionally, I don't advertise it, but if it comes up and someone wants me to do it, because I've worked in-house, I really kind of knew how to get that process so fine-tuned so that the ratios are just spot on. We're not wasting anybody's time.
What does it look like for a medium-sized business that let you under the bonnet? Like, what's that exploratory process like to begin with?
So I basically have a big whiteboard with my post-it notes, and I would go through with them every single stage of the process, from the first moment of we want to hire someone. Okay, what's working there? Who signs it off? Sort of what's the process of doing that? What's not working? How long does that take? And then, okay, job signed off. Now what do you do? Where are you advertising? Are you using agencies? Are you paying them too little fees so they're not giving you the right candidates? Are you advertising in places that no one's seeing? Are your job adverts?
Sorry, no, the recruitment founder who that exploratory process that you go through with them in helping them with their own life, their own business.
Ah, I see what you mean. Right.
My mistake, I didn't.
No problem. So yeah, when someone comes to me, sometimes people come to me with a very specific problem. So it might be around sleep, stress, it might be time management, it might be an addiction, it might be sort of communication problems. And if they come for a specific thing, we deal with that. Whereas people that I work with on a long-term basis, the first thing I do is actually check in with them. And I've got a tool on my website. It's a life audit tool. And I do that with them. And we go through 20 parts of their life and we rate it. Because often someone might think the problem is work and actually they're not sleeping, or things are not great at home, or they haven't seen their friends in ages, or they're just not feeling any joy. So it's like, don't quit your job, don't shut down your business. Why don't we actually just get you sort of eating a bit better or finding some new friends?
Interesting.
So that's like one of the very first things that I do, because often we're not really aware of what's wrong, or so many things feel like they're wrong that we're overwhelmed and we don't know where to start and what habits to kind of start to build. So by doing that audit, you end up with a nice little spider diagram, and you can then join the dots and go, actually, if I got more sleep, I'd probably have energy to exercise, which would probably mean that I'd feel better physically. I'd probably make better food choices. All of those things means I've got more energy for my job, which means I've got more money, which means I can live in a better house.
Yeah.
That my partner's going to be happy. And suddenly you're like, oh, if I just got off my phone and stopped scrolling through Instagram and got some more sleep, like 8 different parts of your life could be more positively improved.
Yeah. And then just that all makes sense, by the way, but the Wendy Rhoades element of, you've done a lot of that, and then they're like, these bastards just aren't working hard enough, or they're just not doing enough for me, and I'm doing all the work and all of this, and like, why can't they just do what I can do? Like you must have heard that 1,000 times. Like, what does that, what's that all look like?
Yeah, and sometimes it's about working with the team member to understand what the blockers are. What is it? Is it their time management? Why are they procrastinating? Why are they overthinking? How do we help calm them down using breathing techniques if something's gone wrong? So sometimes by working with the team member, we can fix that. Other times we can't, and they shouldn't be in recruitment and they're unhappy. And part of my job is actually just to help them not be in recruitment anymore, which is going to save the boss the job of firing them, save the person the job of ending up being off sick. So one thing I always say to the businesses that I work with is that my job is to support the leader and the team, and using the information that I have around the business to make the business a better place, the team higher performing. But I can't guarantee that everyone is still going to be on that journey. And generally, when people leave because they're not meant to be there, that's just a bit of a relief all round. But the ideal thing is that if I had someone who was a brilliant performer, but just wasn't working the way that the boss wanted him to work. And the boss contacted me, he was like, I'm getting really fed up. This guy's brilliant, but he just won't do what I want. And the first thing in my head I thought was, I think this guy's got ADHD. Had a chat with the guy. The first thing he said was, I've got ADHD. I don't want to tell my boss. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And eventually he had the confidence to tell his boss. The boss went, you're not just being kind of rude.
You're not a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got it right. Okay, you can't help it.
Yeah, you think differently, which is actually what has made you brilliant and a top performer. But now what I need to do, and then my next job was supporting the boss to be able to support the person. So the hope is it's about inspiring and motivating and uplifting people when they're having a hard time. But sometimes it's people need to go, or sometimes if someone's not very well, I've been used as the sort of the go-between to work out, are they really ill? Are they not? Are they just sort of playing the ill card? And it's like, if someone's really ill, give them time to go and get better, have them come back, and they will be the most loyal person. So it's a lot of that. And that's where the kind of the Wendy Rhoades bits comes involved, that go-between of knowing what does the founder want, what's going on in the team. And sometimes I'm like, can you just stop making excuses? You're not working very hard, or sort of you're being disruptive, and just stop it, because that's not working for anyone. Whereas other times it's using the coaching to go, right, what is actually going on here?
So flow state is something that interests me. I find it hard to get myself into a flow state. I coach kids in jiu-jitsu on a Friday, and I can see my youngest son going into a flow state. I can see him going into a flow state when he plays football as well. And my older fella, he doesn't. And he said something to me the other day. He said, like, no, I need music in my head to go into a flow state. So I'm like, oh, I need to get this guy playing an instrument, or like there has to be something else. Um, some of us are blessed enough to have a natural flow state, right? We're born in that, and that's where you get the geniuses. That's where you get your Lionel Messi's, where they just turn up and they have it. Um, can you coach it out of somebody? What does that process look like? How do you recognize it? Walk
Yeah.
me through what it means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's the things that are the natural things people enjoy. And sport is a big one. Music is another one, whether it's sort of anyone else doing jigsaw puzzles over Christmas.
Yeah.
Just that time's gone. And you're just like, wow, I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about sort of what's happening on social media. And it's generally really easy to get into it when it's something that we enjoy.
Yeah.
Often the challenge is, how do you get someone into a flow state about something that maybe they don't want to do, whether that's kind of business development, whether that's a housework. And there's like this sort of circle of flow where we have to start with the struggle of like, oh, I don't really want to do this. Then we go into the release phase. And this is all based on neurochemicals in the brain and what gets released at different points. So we go into the release phase, and breath work is a really powerful release because it creates nitric oxide, which is a super gas. So one of the things that I generally would do with people is we'd do a little bit of breathing, different exercises, depending what we want to achieve. There are other things that you can do within that, but for me, that's the tool that I use because it works. And then that's when you go into the flow state, and that's sort of at the different point, the different chemicals are released.
And it's something to do with oxygen in your brain.
Absolutely. So what happens when we do breath work and where the nitric oxide comes in is that behind the nose, we've got a cavity about the size of a fist. And when we are doing breath holds,
Some people in recruitment have a bigger cavity than that.
exactly. Yeah. Sometimes they're very good at the breath hold. That's all. But yeah, we create this nitric oxide, and then when we inhale that basically just starts all of this chemical process going on with the dopamine and all of these sort of different hormone processes. And when we want to do something like going onto the football pitch, or what we're excited about it, going onto a dance floor in a nightclub, like no problem. I'm in flow state. I haven't even had to think about it. The challenge is when you're getting one of your team or yourself to do something you don't want to do, then I work on visualizing the end game. Yeah. So when I'd be doing the breath work at the beginning, let's just say you want someone to do business development. Right, we've got a bit of breathing going on. Right, now what I really want us to do is to start to visualize that new client, getting that new job on, filling that deal, what that leads to, getting that commission, buying that place, having that holiday, whatever. And you get them visualizing that through the breathing, because what that then does is when we start to think positively, that creates a more positive feeling. So you start to feel inspired, you start to feel motivated, and then off the back of the feeling, you act. So then you're like, right, do you know what? I hate BD, but I'm going to do it for 2 hours because I am knowing that I want that holiday to wherever it is that we fancy. And then you go through your flow state. And then the key bit at the end is the recovery. And this is where people often go wrong, because they try and loop the flow state, which you can't do. In a football match, you have a break at half time. In like any sport, you have breaks. And when you come out of your flow state, like you're a bit like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Yeah. Instead of going right straight onto the next Zoom, give yourself a moment again. Maybe it's a bit of gentle breathing. Maybe it's a little bit of movement. Maybe it's going and having a chat with someone, like whilst making a cup of tea, whatever it is. But that little pause before you then try to go back into flow state. And for different people, it's different. Like some people, you might be talking about flow state for 25 minutes. and the Pomodoro technique around time management, where you do 25 minutes and have a 5-minute break and then another 25 and a 5-minute break. Whereas other people, particularly neurodiverse people, this is sort of one of the amazing talents, is that ability when they're in something is to be in it for hours. And I see it with my husband, like I just don't see him all day, and he's just been so in that flow state. So it isn't that everyone's going to get there for 1 hour or 6 hours. It is, people are different. We've got different energy levels, depends on what your night's sleep was like the night before. So there's a lot of different things that can impact that.
How do you get a bunch of ball bags like me, like men in 30s and 40s that are cynical, that like how do you get them to sit around a room and breathe? Like I'm saying this as a cynical person, but somebody who is at a stage where I'm buying into what you're saying. Like I'm like, I believe in this, but I'm trying to visualize myself 10 years ago in a highly competitive room with a bunch of men, and you're coming in and saying, I need you to take deep breaths and visualize where you're like, what is that? Like, how do you get the buy-in? Like, how does that happen? Like,
so depend on who it is. If it is business leaders, then it's very easy to start. There is so
they're
much.
paying you. They're the ones paying the bill, right?
Yeah.
They made
And
their
there's so
mind up.
much.
They're doing it.
The research is out there, all the science, that's fine. The
Yeah.
younger people, often, if I'm really honest, I tell them it's like taking drugs, but it doesn't cost you anything and it's not it's not dangerous. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, look, we're here for 15 minutes. Why don't you try it? Do you want to feel you want to feel like you've sort of smoked a bit of cannabis? Do you want to feel like you've taken something high energy? Let's do that. And I play brilliant music to it. So they're a bit surprised because they're like, she's playing Faithless. What's going on? And I get them.
Is that not a bit too old? Is that not more our generation than?
It's coming back. They played recently in Brighton. It's very
Oh,
good.
really?
Yeah. But another thing that I will do is I will sort of say what, like, you know, companies have got like your theme tunes or whatever. And I did it recently. I said to the team, what's that party song when you hit a dance floor? And they mentioned something called Nine Toes. So I went and checked that it worked with the breathing speeds that I wanted, and it did. So as soon as we got started and I played that, they were like, whoa, okay. And then it's brought in. And as long as I can sort of, and partly it's like, look, you're here. Why don't you just try this? And if you don't like it, just sit there, don't say anything, but why don't you give it a go? And as soon as they've tried it, you know that they are convinced, but you have to try it to believe it, because otherwise you just think it's a bit of hippie rubbish.
Yeah, no, and just like I'm definitely not being facetious. Like I don't think it's
I get it.
rubbish, but I may have it in my younger years. So I'm trying to.
When I was in my 20s, everything I do now, I'd have thought was an absolute load of rubbish.
Yeah.
But like talking about billions, Axelrod, what did he have? He had his meditation room, and he'd go away and now, because of the research and the proof around the moving from your stress nervous state to your calm, and all of the fact that it does release all of these kind of fab hormones that make you feel great, I think more and more people, Wim Hof has really helped. Wim Hof has, particularly for men, put breath and ice, and they're like, oh, okay, this is a real man thing. But what I do now is anytime I run a breathwork session, I ask people to talk about it publicly, and I ask them to put it on LinkedIn. And I say, you don't even have to tag me. This is about you spreading the word that this actually works. And I had a recommendation from a guy that I work with, and he's got ADHD, and I introduced him to breathwork, and he was just like, oh my God. He went, just change everything. So you do have to get people to try it, but I think generally, sort of most of the time, as soon as the music starts to play, they're like, oh, okay, this isn't all like omming and weirdness, so let's just give it a go. And if they don't, then everyone enjoys it, and then the person afterwards like, oh, now maybe I'll give that a try.
And is there anything, like, if somebody's listening to this, say they're a recruitment founder, because that seems to be the only people who listen, or directors, what can they do to self-evaluate where they're at? And like, is there anything before they get to a point where they're like, I need to get somebody like you in? Like, what can they do? What should they do?
Well, the first thing I say is kind of like, if you imagine, like with your car, you get your warning sign that comes up that says your petrol's running low or your tires need pumping up, and we're like, oh, okay, I'll go and do that. Whereas we get these warnings and we don't pay any attention. And whether it's that suddenly we're not sleeping as well, or we're being more irritable with the kids, or we're drinking a bit too much, and we ignore those things. And often it means like someone else has to say, mate, you're kind of a bit like hungover all of the time. What's going on? Or your partner decides that they want to go to counselling with you because the relationship's not great. So I think it is about regular little check-ins with yourself, and some people will journal, and that's up to whatever people want to call it, but anything that just means that you're kind of like, how am I doing today? Do I feel all right? How's my body feel? And there's something called pies, which is physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Spiritual doesn't have to mean religion, but it's like, how do I feel today physically? How do I feel intellectually? How do I feel emotionally? And even just like, and I know
how do you define the spiritual thing? Like what, like?
So for some people, it will be religion. Huberman, he talks a lot about praying and his religious kind of aspect of it. For me, spiritual is about nature, about sort of, it's that peace. And I love being
out. Walk in the forest, is it?
Yes, exactly. So spiritual means different things for different people. And whatever it is that is your thing that brings you that sense of inner calm.
See if anybody's listening here and they're thinking they're hungover and they're going to give up drink. Don't be telling me about it on LinkedIn every day. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you're sober. I don't care how happy you are. Just stop telling me about it. I don't care. I don't care.
There'd be no post on LinkedIn if no one was telling you all that.
Just either drink or don't drink, but don't be telling me about it. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm bored. Like,
it's an interesting one, the whole with dry January and stuff like that. It's a very interesting, because we all know that we feel better when we don't drink.
Sure, you sleep better, all the rest.
Yeah.
And we all have to take breaks, and it does change our mindset, and it does do that. But why does it have to be the central core of your identity?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's just actually really good fun to go and have a few to drink. Like, that's why I will never give it up fully. I try not to drink as much as I used to, but I like a glass of wine. And if I'm going out for dinner, then all right, I'm not going to be doing Jaeger bombs unless maybe I'm on a ski.
I'm getting more. I'm actually getting more into wine now. Yeah. So it's everybody else is giving up drink, and I'm like, this wine is working for me. Although I am taking a couple of weeks pause just to get. So I like to take a small pause in January, February. Like I like to just so I can get that. Those, I think I may have a touch of ADHD, but I like to get those visions done and all those kickoff meetings and all the rest. Do you have any advice on kickoff meetings? I had one today on one of our things, and I just kind of wanted to start a fight with everybody to get people up and going instead of inspire them. Sometimes it's sometimes you need the carrot, sometimes you need the stick, sometimes you just need a flame throwing exercise, especially when you come out of people just being dull and dead and all the rest. Like, what kind of advice do you have, like, for people kicking things off?
I literally, just before we started recording this, just put something on LinkedIn, not about alcohol, but it's something that sometimes I'll just start meetings with when everyone's all a bit flat and a bit rubbish, and I don't get them doing star jumps, but it's about basically using your brain, and try it. So you go like this, because our brains get all a bit dozy and we don't want to...
Just tell people what you're doing, because nobody bloody watches this. They all listen.
Okay, so basically I've got one thumb up on my left hand, and I've got my forefinger out on my right hand. And now what I want to do is I want to switch that so that my thumb goes down on my left hand and my forefinger goes out. You're just gonna have to look on my LinkedIn to see it. And on my right hand, the thumb goes up. So I'm basically switching from hand to hand between thumb and finger. And eventually your brain's like, a bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. It's that sort of idea. So for me, when I'm starting something off, I just want to get people laughing, and I just want to get them kind of all connected and present. So whether it is some sort of stupid little like patting your head, rubbing your tummy type exercise thing. Sometimes it, depending on the group, again, we might be doing some breathing exercises. It might be that we got some music going on. Or sometimes you just got to be really honest with people and go, right, it's the start of the new year. We've got some big things that we want to achieve this year. Let's go and make it happen. And that's a bit like the sports thing, isn't it? Where they're kind of all like exciting each other, or you see pop stars about to go on the stage and they all get together beforehand. And I think Madonna used to like get people praying or whatever, but they're all kind of revving each other up and energizing each other. Tony Robbins does this really well. Tony Robbins is probably one of the world's most famous coaches, and he takes over sort of arenas, and we'll have like 15,000 people. And his belief is that the quickest thing you can do is move your body, because trying to change how we think takes time. But get up, stand up, play the music loud. He has all those like big foam fingers, and it's a bit cult-like, but people are chest bumping. And so sometimes it is about
It's like working in haze, isn't it?
At Computer Futures, they just used to take our seats away. We had to stand up.
I did an assessment day in Hayes one time. I was in Australia, and part of the assessment interview was they asked you to tell them why Hayes is so great. So everybody had to go one after the other. You had to sell. You had to sell. It's a listed business. It makes this amount of money. It's got like great maternity. It's got this, one after the other. I was like, I have to get out of here. I was 27 at the time, and I was like, I need to get back to Robert Walters. That okay? They were all a bit more like me. This is mad.
Exactly. And that's also the challenge, isn't it? It's like we don't want a team of everyone that's just the same. But we also do want to have a team of people that sort of get on, motivate each other. It's that sort of would you go for a beer with the person type question, which is a difficult one, because you do want different people, because that helps solve different problems. But yeah, you got to make sure that there's some, I guess, shared purpose and vision to actually of what you all want to achieve. But actually, just thinking about what you're saying there about kickoffs, one of the challenges I often see is that a leader will have been working for so long on a strategy piece, say 6 months, they've got a plan, a new market, a new geography, and in their head, they're about to deliver it and everyone should just be excited, forgetting that this may be the first time that those people have heard about these changes, and that they need a bit of time to get their head around the fact that there's a change. So I think making sure that however you're delivering things to the team, that you're sort of considering the fact that this is new news. People don't really like change, even if it's like might feel exciting. So working on how you communicate with people to get them excited about it.
Yeah, I've been that person a few times. I've been that person a few times. No, trying to not do anything new this year, just expand upon all the work we've done in the past. It's tricky. How I'm finding 2025 quite interesting so far. I'm seeing optimism that I haven't seen in the UK, in Australia, in America. Things feel like in the core markets that we're playing in, it feels like things are on the up again. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the same with the conversations that I've had already this year. People are, I think, with the way that Christmas fell and New Year fell, and lots of people actually sort of had that extended break. So they've gone away, they've had a proper rest over Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't know if just who I've spoken to, but most people seem to have had actually relatively small Christmases, quite quiet, haven't done as much crazy out and about as they would. So they're coming into the year actually with some energy and some sort of motivation. And then I'm definitely seeing sort of those positive changes. And you see it on LinkedIn and you take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, don't you, as to how honest people are being. But certainly the teams that are wanting to grow, they're wanting to invest, whereas maybe last year they were cutting back a little bit. A lot of people have left the industry. That's sad, but so that creates opportunity for those people that are still here. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling much more excited about this year than certainly the middle half of last year was a sort of like, oh, okay, this is really
I have to
hard.
admit that, like, I'd say hardest in 10 years in business, last year was the hardest year I've ever had.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have a couple of streams of income within what we do, I'm pretty sure we would have either lost our entire team or went under. And we've just come out by the skin of our teeth. And it's one of these ones where I now have everybody's been with us a long time. They're a bit bruised, but now that good things are happening, they're all kind of re-energized, and I'm optimistic about it. I think before we came on, you mentioned about a false dawn. I'm just hoping it's not that. I don't think it is. And looking at the macro stuff and all the rest, I think despite the Labour government's best efforts to make things a disaster, it's going to it's going to be all right globally, and then we'll see. Um,
And I think that's it, isn't it? Is that sort of, as much as I might like to wave magic wands and make everybody all happy and resilient and all of that,
yeah,
ultimately, if you're in recruitment, the best way to get happy is to make some deals and make some money. Because everything is so much easier to deal with when that's happening. So I'm really positive and excited about the year. And it'll be just nice to see people not like just crawling and surviving and just getting to the point that they just can't do it anymore, and getting them to see those, particularly the people that are quite new to the industry who haven't had the opportunity to see how amazing it can be. I'm excited for those people to get that opportunity. All the people who had done really well and then decided to leave and set up their own businesses just as the market died.
I know.
Oh, and have just had an absolute nightmare. And I'm really just looking forward for them to have some good times, because it's been so tough.
No, it's been a hell of a ride. So, how can people find you? What type of people should look out to you, and what services do you offer them, Wendy?
I should just rebrand, shouldn't I?
Big time.
So very simply, I'm on LinkedIn. My website is michelleflynncoaching.com. I do one-to-one coaching. So sometimes that's the emergency call when you're worried about someone, or it's a business leader wanting some support. I do lots and lots of different talks and workshops, particularly things around Mental Health Awareness Week or stress management, that sort of thing, and breath work. But then I also do a more detailed, it's like an employee assistance program, but instead of getting a stranger on the phone, you get to know me. I'm in the office. I get to know everyone in the team. And that's where real change happens, because I'm able to use the knowledge that I'm learning from the team without breaking any confidence, but to be able to then support the leaders to make the business better for them, which also then makes it better for the team. So yeah, there's a broad range of different ways that I can help people depending on what companies need. And someone said that I'm the Swiss Army knife that businesses need in their top pocket. So I've just got a tool for everything. So yeah, whether it is work stuff, home, health, relationships, there's lots of areas I can support.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Bye.